Good evening, Burbicians. Good evening, Guyanese, and welcome. Tonight we have our final edition for 2024, and I am very, very privileged to have join me tonight the founder and former leader of the Alliance for Change, who I've worked with for a long time, even before the Alliance for Change started. As a matter of fact, I think I was president and Kemraj was vice president, and then vice versa at some stage, long before 2006. So we've been working together. And as we close off 2024, I thought this would be a good opportunity for the two of us to talk a little bit about 2024, but more importantly, the most important year coming up, which is 2025, with the national elections, of course, on the agenda. And apart from that, the several issues that confront all of us as a country and how we are collectively going to take Guyana forward. So I want to be able to probably throw the first question at Kemraj, which is, Kemraj, how would you assess 2024, both for the country and also for the Alliance for Change, and what you think were the big ticket items in 2024?
Thanks very much, Babishans, and thanks very much, Nigel, for that introduction. Yes, indeed, we go back a long, long time.
Yeah,
President and vice president, respectively, of the Bar Association and so on. And actively involved in so many issues of human rights and all manner of matters in the High Court and right up to the CCJ and so on. But thanks for being here and allowing me also the privilege of being in the last for 2024. Look, some of the big ticket items was largely what transpired in Parliament, the latest being this Compulsory Acquisition Act. But more than that, we had a number of other things happening in the country, as it were. The high inflation rate that has really immiserized Guyanese people, and the fact that, again, very bad production within Gaisuko, the fact that they had praised Sesnarayan Singh to the hilt that he's going to bring back it. And then, of course, they allow him to go to Brussels, and then they start chastising all the other senior managers and allow his Sesnarayan Singh to escape all of this. So we see inflation too as being a big item in the lives of all the Babishans, especially sugar workers, and especially the lower working class in that region and county. They have had a tremendous amount of difficulties and challenges. I have indicated, please, that is my grandson's giving me some trouble. That their lives are going to be made even worse in 2025 because the cost of living is going to still go upwards. The government has done nothing, and we have done a lot in our press releases to talk about this. I know that we have gotten tremendous help from the Starbuck News that does this program every, I think, Sunday when they do the cost of living anew and so on. And it is the truth, although the government does not want to state that it is the truth, that the immiserization and the impoverization of the Guyanese, especially within its own constituencies and support bases, that are really, really being challenged. And throughout the year, it was that difficulty. We had other difficulties, the way they said they're going to increase the wages, and they did not do the collective bargaining. They just went on to say, well, we're going to pay you 10% this year and 9% next year. And that had an impact also on the trade unionism and the democratization of workers' participation in relation to matters of their salaries and wages and so on. And that this year also saw a number of other big projects which was, pursued in a very chaotic fashion. The most recent being the the $100,000 distribution. We have seen teachers and everybody who should have been easily paid through their pay packets in the form of their salary accounts and so on, paid their $100,000 having to line up. And I think there is a little method in this madness of this government wanting to show the people that, this is what it is, and also to humiliate them in the process. I think we came out with a statement today to that effect. So all in all, it was a pretty bad year for the Guyanese people, and I think very negative for the government of Guyana. And what we have been doing largely as an AFC too, Nigel, and you can speak more on this, is the outreaches that we've been having, not only within the country and the various regions that you have gone to. I have gone pretty much to Berbice on a regular fashion, but it is also overseas, hearing from what our people over there are talking about as to what's happening in Guyana. And
I,
so, in a sense, it has been a very productive year in relation to what the AFC has been doing.
I wanted to come back to the question of cost of living because I think that's the number one item in Guyana right now, the cost of living, and particularly for people in Region 6 and Region 5. How do people like sugar workers, people who are on fixed salaries working in the civil service, how can they manage this cost of living? And secondly, this 100,000 grant, which is very sporadically disbursed, does that really impact upon the cost of living? What's your view on those two items, particularly?
No, I have been hearing from them. I have gone to my village back 47 because I generally do it a little more often now in the context of my mom. She needs, your presence so very often. And I've gone there for other family matters. I've gone there also for AFC matters and so on in Bushlot, and there's a place in Albion that Basdew took us to and so on. And look, they are all crying out and stating very frankly up front that they can't make ends meet as it used to happen, especially like in, let's say, 2015 to 2020. The times, although it was not as if they were having greater salaries then, they get greater salaries now. But they could have bought with the salaries then, or their remunerations then, lots more that they could buy in 2024. And it's the truth, because when you check up the prices, although they might want to say that inflation rate is, I don't know, 6% or 7%, that is what is coming from Ashni Singh and the cabinet members and the president and so on, and especially the vice president. But that is not true. You go into the market as against 2023 and 2022, this thing has gone 40, 50% more with cooking oil, butter, peas and split peas, and rice might be a little more stable, but still it has gone upwards. And then every other thing, clothing, books, the transportation fees. Now that they did away with the Granger buses to carry their children to school and all of that, it has taken a toll on them. And a lot of them have taken their children out of school, and many of them now cannot afford 3 square meals. It is 2 and 1.5, literally. And that is what politicians have been telling us. So it is very, very bad. And they can't make do with the salaries that they're earning.
I know UNICEF in 2022 said that extreme child food poverty is 20% in Guyana and child food poverty is 40%. That's pretty scary for an oil economy like ours, where we're making $65 million an hour, $1.456 billion a day. Now, what would you recommend be some of the measures that could be taken by the state to reduce the impact of this cost of living? Because this is really, like you said, for a cane cutter, for a civil servant, for somebody who is struggling, can't make it, the prices going up. I think the other day I saw pumpkin at $4,500.
Yeah, a cut.
Right. So it's not only the imported goods, it's the goods that are manufactured and grown in Guyana that are also escalating. I mean, they've gone through the roof. I think peppers today, I have a little small farm. Peppers were something like $800 a pound. So what would you recommend would be some of the measures that one we could look at that would reduce the impact of the cost of living?
Well, the very first, and as the economists will tell you, and as we have been saying, is that you have to increase your salaries to those who are employed, whether it be by public or private sector. The private sector seems to be on a frolic of its own, literally with salaries. I have gone to Rosal, and you ask some of the girls there, salespersons and so on. It is literally nothing that they earn. And you got to get a more, what you call it,
Okay, let me come
socially.
back to you on that. If the government comes back and says, if we increase the salaries, that's going to push inflation even further.
Look,
How would you respond to that?
no, it is not necessarily true, because remember, we have a suffering working class, as it were. And Clive Thomas has talked about this since in the days of the the salary increases that were demanded in and around 1999 by the Armstrong report. What
Yeah.
kind of, you need an economy to grow, especially when it is going to have a consumer buying goods that are being produced by the people out there. There might be a little inflationary effect, but if people know that I can go and produce more peppers because they got Guyanese who going to buy the pepper to eat it, it stabilizes. I am not an economist, but our Clive Thomas and even the Dr. Jaggans, when they were asking the sugar workers, we paid more money, which the PPP loves to do and give to the sugar workers. They don't say, look, if we pay the sugar workers more, we can get inflation, like what Jack they're trying to do in relation to public servants. He has increased the salaries of sugar workers too, and to the 10% or probably more. But the whole idea is that it is a falsity in the argumentation to say that it is going to be inflationary and all of that. We feel that the consumer having more monies to buy things can do better for especially our local industries, especially the local foods and food stuff and whatever that we produce. And they can do better. Their happiness levels will be increased and so on. The social impacts of unhappiness, like suicide. You know, Guyana is the highest per capita for suicide in the world. Domestic violence, we are number 7 or so in the world. Why do you think is that? It is largely because of the unhappiness level that comes with the incapacity not to be able to take care of your family or your wife or your children, and a whole host of other societal challenges come up, and then you get vexed with the society, and a kind of a revenge personal thing happens, and then you're going to do all kind of domestic violence and madness. You're going to drink out all your money and so on, and that is what causes the very. Then you go and steal, larceny, predial larceny, and the increase in quarantine. People picking away. I mean, I know of the situation in 47 Village with our coconut walk. We got about 300-400 coconut trees up now in the back down. We can't pick any coconut. All gone by the time the lady sent somebody to pick the coconuts. It's stealing.
I wanted to come back to this combating this inflation. Some economists say that the government can directly intervene by providing some staples. So providing, let's say,
Yeah.
something. So for the poor people, those people who are finding it difficult, you have a means test. You actually provide some of the staples, whether it's the rice, whether it's some of the staples. They do a means test, and they can probably go to a state institution, and once they qualify, temporary measure, they can actually get assistance. So that would be a direct intervention by the state to protect the most vulnerable people in society. So if we look at the data, and the data says, well, look, if you are making less than $80,000 a month, when you do the cost of living, you do the rent, etc., You can't get, you won't be able to afford the basics, and therefore you set up, this is not to disrupt the market, but you set up a system by which people can go, once they qualify, they can actually get these products. Some of the staples. What's your reaction to that as a
No, that is an option. That is an option, and the option there is one that we welcome. I could appreciate that if you can do the genuine means test to find
yeah,
out who are the bottom rung, because there will be administrators too who will have to now go around to give, and that thing sometimes the distribution or the redistribution. First of all, there is corruption in the actual distribution, and then also as to who are entitled. Similar to the various things that were done in the
right,
past 2-3 years. And I view that option as one that could be added to
mhm,
our toolbox, that as a tool to help with the poverty-stricken nature. But I still believe that the one that is the best is enhance their salaries and try to stabilize your currency so that it doesn't get devalued by the inflationary impact and so on. And there are methods whereby, at a fiscal and a monetary level, these economists know how to settle that thing about the inflationary effect of increases in your salaries and so on. And we have to be smart. We have to be smart because the IMF would come down on you, or the World Bank will come down on you and say, well, no, don't. But these major institutions, as Chetty Jagan used to teach Bobitians and teach the whole country, they have their own interest as to that. Why these increases are not good. Clive Thomas have indicated in big theses and so on, that why it is wrong to not give increases and so on. And I remember him teaching us all at that Armstrong report as to why. Because they were saying that only give the PPP must only give 6% increases Jagdev wanted to do. But Mr. Armstrong came out with a report after Janet Jagan ordered that he do it, and he said 39%. And there was no big inflationary effect that Jagdev was decrying about. No, none. And so it measures up, and people feel a little more dignified. That they could walk with their chest up a little. And you know what is worse too is this fact: the great expectations of an oil economy, and still getting worse off than you were prior to the oil economy. And this is all because of policies. You see, if they do the median test too, Nigel, it will show that Amerindians and black people are the worse off. And this PPP not gonna want to give them that kind of thing. It has a racial impact about it.
right.
And
Well,
that is why they're not gonna want to have that kind of thing as an option.
but the reality is, isn't it, Kemraj? Forget what the results show. We have to use data, and if the results show that, surely the national approach must be to try to rebalance that. So even if the means test says, look, obviously, I think any test will show that the Amerindians are probably the worst off in the country, followed by the African population. Ignoring it doesn't address it. It really
No,
just...
we're not saying to ignore it, Nigel. I am
No,
saying...
I didn't think you were saying ignore it.
Yeah.
But you're saying the PPP doesn't want to address it.
Absolutely, because who will be the beneficiaries under that means testing and median whatever analysis and so on? They're going to say it's not a support base,
But
because that is where they're giving. And I want to make this point. You would have seen in the 2024 budget that $660 billion was given for infrastructure works. When you check out all the companies that have been winning the substantial part, or if not the whole part of this $666 billion, are a set of people, okay? And they will be making billions of dollars as profits. A infrastructure contract engineer or whatever gets about 20% of whatever monies he gets as profits. The rest go to build a bridge or the hospital or whatever it is, okay? 20% of that $666 billion is roughly the same amount of money that teachers, policemen, soldier boy, everybody in the public servants get. 54,000 of them get as salaries. And you will have 100, or let's say 90 out of that 100 who gonna get that same set of money as profits. What kind of arrangement? So at a policy level too, we are seeing the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and that has to be equalized in a sense, or we got to make it lessen it. It is an important aspect of our economy that we got to set right. And wittingly or unwittingly, when the PPP said, well, we are making infrastructural works, unwittingly they are empowering a set of people that they're cronies. That is why I call it crony capitalism, for their friends. And they are the ones that are getting. I got some friends in quarantine. When you go in their house now, buddy, contract a fella. Them are more than them big rice farmers and so on. Them contractor buy. It's more flowing all over the place. You know much on battle of the thing? And they enjoying life with the fancy cars in the 2-3 years now. They turn contractor. Big 4x4. Big lie like me and so on can't afford and thing that. And these guys living it up. And they get arrogant. And it's tell you all kind of thing and call you all kind of name and kakai and ramjatan and all kind of thing. You don't bother with them anymore, but you're still, they're your friends and so on. But that is what is happening. And so unwittingly, this thing is creating an arrogant crony class now. And they feel that they work hard for the money. You know how hard I just work? You ask the black man down the road there how hard he just work. He don't work. And that is what is going to kill this thing. It is going to cause big political conflagration, in my opinion.
I'm glad you touched that, because a few months ago, Ralph Ramkaran, who is not known to be sympathetic to the opposition, commented that there should be diversity in contracts because all the big contracts are going to one location. And the difficulty with that is that in a country like Guyana, do you think it's only a matter of time before we end up with a position where it may be difficult to contain what may be pent up hostility or animosity?
Yes, that you're very accurate. I'm projecting that will happen in 2025. There is an arrogance not only with these contractor rich East Indian class anymore. It has gone into the government where you would have expected some more reason. When you're going to tell people that you're going to compulsory acquire their land, we got a constitutional provision that says to acquire it, you got to pay me compensation first. There was a justice that, and the full court, I think, also ruled that you must get compensation before the land is given. You know, this Attorney General of ours, very arrogantly in Parliament, said that he's going to pass this piece of legislation and put in some words that says, without prejudice to the state's entitlement to have possession of the land when he going to lodge 80% in the court. It is unconstitutional. I've told him that. He said, well, bring it on. Well, we might get some cases coming up. But the whole idea of it is that the arrogance of it all. If you want to say you want possession, you got to go and amend the Constitution. But that might require a 2/3 majority, which they don't have. So he gone and tried to sneak the thing in as if, he could do that in putting it in the Compulsory Acquisition Act and not the Constitution. If you want to change our Constitution, which says possession, but after you pay me compensation, then you can take the thing. Like Steve Surge-Bally carried them to court. They can't take away Steve Surge-Bally land. That is the existing law. Because you got paid Surge-Bally what Surge-Bally is asking for, or what a court will now say is the value. This fella just go and say by a stroke of a pen, he and Ilnandalal and the cabinet agree that we're going to pay you 80% of what we feel like, and we're going to take possession of it. And this is the nonsensical approach that is happening even with people that I really thought, Nigel, would have some more sense. You can understand a little 2x2 fella who turned contractor now and turned 4x4. You understand? He now can be arrogant because you didn't expect anything better from him. But when you got people who went to law school and this and that, and people who are bright and Guyana scholar and all of them, and they're supporting something that is unconstitutional, the arrogance is going to make the conflagration even wider and deeper with more explosiveness about it. And that is
All right.
how, I am ending this year, because I have been sitting in my hammock in lot 10 Delft Street here too. And you're thinking about it. What will happen next year? Especially on people who feel that they ought to be entitled to lots more. And justly so, they are not being entitled. And
But
but I
as
want you to tell me how you think too about these
no, no,
issues.
no. I'm going to, yeah, yeah. I'm raising it because I also have a view on it.
Mhm.
Um, we obviously need to present the data, and you touched on that. The most important thing in Ghana is that we can't just say these things. We have to present the data, and it is obvious, like you said, of the people who received the 666 billion contracts. If we had a Freedom of Information Act, the government would have to
That's right.
publish the names of the companies that are receiving that, and we know where they're located. The
That's right.
question, one of the questions I have is, how do you begin to redress this by way of policy? Is it that you publish the data, we acknowledge as a fact that of the 666 billion, 90% is going to a particular ethnic group, and therefore the other ethnic groups, it's not just the African ethnic group, it's the indigenous, it's the mixed, the rest, clearly don't have the capacity to compete, because one of the things is if you put in 666 billion into one sector of the economy, they're going to buy more equipment, get more advanced, so that when they have to bid, they clearly are going to be better equipped to bid and win successfully. So you're actually making it almost a permanent state of affairs. So one of the challenges I think for Ghana is, how do we begin to, as a matter of urgency, redress that imbalance? Because a
It
lot of
will be it will be by a virtue of what has been done, even to get initially Indo-Guyanese into these areas. A form, not necessarily
affirmative action.
a affirmative action to, but initially when the businesses of the country were owned by all the Portuguese or the Chinese, and then you started giving loans and you start training as entrepreneurs some of these businessmen that were of East Indian
Descent.
ethnicity. It helped. We have to start, just like plenty of them want to. I think it's Ravi Dev and a number of them years ago had indicated that we have to get a lot of the people who are East Indians into the police force to balance it and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was public security minister. At the
Mhm.
Borby school, you got about, let's say, about 100 people that joined up. About 80 of them became, they were East Indians, but they start complaining that they ain't getting dal and roti morning time, this, that, and you arrange that. You make it so that they will be satisfied in relation to dietary needs and whatever it is, cultural needs. You have to do something like that. If the East,
Did it
the
work?
blacks,
Did it work when you did that?
well, it helped somewhat, but it did not, because a lot of the boys still remain Afro Guyanese from Manchester and this area and so on. Because after 3 or 6 weeks into the training, they want to run and get up early in the morning and run and all kind of thing. And so a lot of them, ended up coming off.
But
But
but but
the whole idea was that you have to try to do it, and it ended up years before you used to get about 20, now you're getting about 30 of them that could manage to stay the course.
so you would say that the diversity in the law enforcement agency, the police primarily, has actually improved.
It is improving, and especially in the Amerindian areas. A lot more
Right.
Amerindians have joined the police force and the army than previous times. And it was because of that kind of attitude that we took. It was there too, to a certain extent, with the PPP that came in 2012 to 2014. They started trying all kinds of things themselves. But it is not as if culturally these people don't want to join. these discipline services and so on. And that is the difficulty. They would want to stay at their homes rather than if a commissioner tell them that they got to go to Letem, this, that. They're not culturally attuned to doing that like the other ethnicities. And that is why you have that thing. I mean, this go back since colonial days when there was a team that came from the ICJ
Yeah.
that tried to balance it, and for years it was not being balanced. But
So,
now you tried something, you gave them everything that they wanted, but still a lot of them dropped off.
so with a similar approach in terms of diversity in business, whether it's contracting, whether it's other aspects of business, do you think a similar approach would work in
I
business?
am absolutely certain that it will work, and you have to give it a shot. I mean, the contractors will have to understand entrepreneurship. They will have to understand the organization of whatever various units will be in their business and so on. And they got to start small. And that is why under our
You have a small
administration,
business. You have a small business act, didn't you?
that's right.
But why has
And
that never been operationalized?
well, well, the right now I can't. I
It's not
understand.
operational. It says 20% of all the small contracts should go
Yes,
to
it's
small
supposed to
businesses.
go to small
There's a
businesses.
definition of small businesses, but
Yeah.
that has never, no regulations have ever been set up.
That is
Um,
correct. That is correct. But we tried as best as possible to tell the big contractors. I recalled when we were doing the Mazaruni prison, that very big contract, we asked that the people in that Mazaruni area, that the people who had won the contract was a Trinidad firm along with a Guyanese firm. I forgot what's the name of the Guyanese firm, but it's a very reputable firm. And they did. They did manage to get some people from Bartik and so on to be associated. And what we got to do is to also to tell the people, these big fellas, that if you don't start creating the smaller businessmen at the bottom there, when your big firm goes and you want, to subcontract and all of that, you wouldn't have people in Bartica to do it if you don't start training them. And you have to put a social consciousness that will
but
enhance the entrepreneurial profitability of the businesses, the big businesses. But somehow,
could it be
you
stronger?
go to
Because
Linden now, the big contractors go to Linden, they don't give the 20% contract to anybody, they want to make all the money.
yes, and given that the government's responsibility is to manage the affairs of the state as equitably as they can,
That's right.
let now become mandatory because clearly what is happening is that you have already created an economically divided country. Serious economic. I think the data we need to publish more of this data. I'd done a bit in something called Economy and Justice.
Yes, you did
Which
wonderfully
showed,
there. Yeah.
the huge diversity. So everything, for example, licenses issued by the government for the purposes of selling gold internationally. 5 out of 6 went to one ethnicity. And I suppose all of us as Guyanese have to start with the fact that we have a difficult ethnic back history.
Yes.
Our history has led to permanent hostility almost. And if we don't address this hostility now by sensible measures that are driven by data, we're going to run into problems.
Absolutely.
Um, and for example, the Crane Road, one of the contractors
Yeah.
got $660 million above the engineer's estimate. So
Exactly.
that's not even the 20%. And what they did is they removed completely by elimination all the other contractors, big international firms, very experienced local firms, removed them, disqualified them. Now, when that happens, I mean that is perhaps a very glaring example. Nothing seems to be the consequence. They don't have to face a consequence. They don't have to justify why somebody is being paid $660 million above an engineer's estimate. And when people see this, apart from the obvious emotional response they have to it, if the system itself does not correct that, we're going to be in a difficult stage. And when we have a change of government, how what would be some of the measures you think should be used to address this kind of imbalance that has been created?
Well, you have a challenge there because you don't want to be seen if you get into government to start raiding these raiders, as it were.
No, no, not rating, but clearly uh, you have an imbalance. So,
Yeah, you
so
have an imbalance,
uh,
but as
I
we've
think you
been
have to
saying,
publish the data. Don't you start by publishing the data so that
absolutely, and
the
that
country
is
can see the data?
that's correct. And this is one of the reasons that the PPP does not want to publish data. I have asked in the parliament for several times, please, could you put on the website of the various ministries the fishermen's distribution of $250,000, the COVID disbursement, and the I think it will be the health ministries or everybody that did COVID grants, who get pink slip and all kind of thing. And let us see, like happens in America, who and who got these things. And it is for that reason that they got a commissioner of information that don't answer your questions. From Thomas Street there, my good friend Ramson
Ramsey.
Sr., you know. And then you also have why they're not giving you the census statistics as
Yeah.
to who and who are working where and where, what is their salary income, how much of the working population of Guyana earns $100,000 and more a month, and whatever. They want to hide it from you,
Would you
although they
would,
have an obligation under the law. Now that
would
the
you
Bureau of
put
Statistics, I think, gave it to them, they now got to give the parliamentarians and do a little thing, and the press will be there, and the press will also get it. They don't have it for months now or years. They haven't been delivering it. So
would you
we are the worst for doing all this analysis that you're saying, or even getting the information. And so when we get there back in government, of course, you will have to ensure that there is the reflection in the public's eyes, the all of this information.
would
And
you
then you have to
entrench in the
do the
Constitution? Would you
yeah,
entrench in the Constitution freedom of information
that's
so that
right.
any citizen can go and request information which has to be disclosed?
That's
Would you
correct. I believe in a right to information, and we have the Constitution talk about information and dissemination of information. But that could also come even if the PPP might not want to support a two-thirds majority. They might not want to give us support for that constitutional amendment. But
but
as
if
a
you're in power,
government,
if
yes,
if if
even
the
if you're in
opposition
power, you
gets
still
in,
need.
you wouldn't that be a proposal that you're saying if the government changes and
Mhm.
the new government of the day says we want to propose a freedom of information protected right in the Constitution as well as enforced by statute, are you saying that the PPP would still oppose it even though they're in
The
opposition?
PPP will still oppose it, boss.
Even
The
if they're in
PPP,
opposition?
yeah, because they'll want to feel that they're going to get back into government again and they're going to do their mischief. A constitutional right, they could subvert it like they're doing with the Compulsory Acquisition Act. But I don't believe so. But even so, when we do the propose and they don't want to support it, we'll find the people will know who they are and how bad they are. But still, at a level, we as a government got to do the good governance aspect of as soon as the thing comes from the Bureau of Statistics, after the study is done as to the census and all the research and whatever, we put it out there. You put it out there. And, you got to be honest. It is credible and honest and not be wicked and mischievous and all of that to hide information because your university students can do analysis. All these information are not there. When they go and they do the analysis, we are in a better position to come up with solutions because seeing the information and asking relevant questions on it, doing the analysis will get us better solutions and things like that. And America does the thing all the time, although they got problems there too. And but the trouble is that they allow it. The press is so much on their backs. They ask them, and these institutions of governance work to a large extent. We have a government that literally tell the people, don't give them the information. When we want to give them the information through a parliamentary question, we will do that. And some of our parliamentary question that deals with these things, up to now, we can't get answers from them.
Right. So coming to coming forward to, I think it was the end of June, early July, when you had indicated that you were retiring. That made us all very depressed. But that you were taking a slightly less forward role in the in active politics. Um, we were concerned about that. But when I had the privilege of succeeding you, I had identified 5 areas that we should have cross political broad consensus. One of them, of course, education,
Mhm.
economy, foreign affairs, reduction of poverty, and health. The reaction of the fourth-term president, current vice president, by nomenclature,
Say
was
Jack Dale, Jack Dale.
Jack Deal, was that, oh, there's no need for any national consensus. Everybody's trying to steal the PPP's ideas, and the Alliance for
Right.
Change had none. Do you believe that it's possible to reach some level of national consensus on those 5 critical areas going forward? And it's particularly in the light of, it's not just the message we send to our international investors or foreign direct investors, but it also adds a level of stability. What do you think is
Nigel,
possible?
I was very proud of you, and that is why, leadership requires that there's a full stop at the sentence too. That people with new ideas and so on must come up the rungs, and you did fantastically. And then coming up with these ideas, and then also talking. The
It's about
talk
the
is
ideas I wanted to
required.
speak to you. Very kind to me, but
Yeah.
about those ideas, do you think we can get political consensus on those 5 critical areas?
Look, I believe that with the PPP around, you're not going to get consensus on anything. Even those. They're going
So
to
let me
want to,
ask you this.
as Jack Dave is already saying, that you steal his ideas. Where did Jack Dave talk about things like that? And so he wants you to get mad. Jack Dave wants to provoke a little war in this country. And
Mm.
anything anybody come up with that is good, he's going to knock it. He's a politician like that. He just don't want to bring consensus. He doesn't want to bring inclusion. And I am just was about to make the point that these are excellent ideas from the new leader of the AFC, talking very progressively as to the need for what is called an advanced kind of economic project for Guyana, and how in which areas. Those 5 areas are 5 areas that a government should be proud to state, well, okay, it come from Nigel or whosoever it come from, we are going to at least have a consultation, deliberate on it, and so on, because it is necessary. In a polarized society like this, it is coming from him, even if they felt that they had the idea before. They say, oh, come on, Nigel, let's talk. Well, you gone and get this jagabat telling you all kind of thing, because he does not want consensus anywhere. You know
But
when
but
he go want consensus? When the conflagration start. Then you
but,
never
but
know, because we might not be in any position as political leaders to know how to end it. Then he can call you. I remember that happened. Remember?
yeah, yeah.
Yes, during the term of the PPP. And then he start calling in this person and that person and say, well, we got to bring some unity and we got to do this. And it happened also when Venezuela started that thing. Then he call you in. But now you want to do the health of the country, the education of the country, the poverty reduction, this. And you put it out there and you say, well, you're willing to speak and so on.
But
No.
but but you
Yeah.
you said Jack Deal doesn't. There must be other people in the People's Progressive Party who are also long-term thinkers, who also look beyond just, this sort of ad hoc politics. Are you saying that the upper echelon of the PPP is now of the same view as Mr. Jack Deal, that there should be no consensus, no consultation, no involvement? Is that the
That
view
is
of the?
my view, Nigel. That is my view. Because imagine a fella like me that came out from the PPP. More than half my political career was from the PPP. PYO leader, everything. And when you try to talk to this guy, Jagdeo, boss, it is a hell of a thing. And he
What
controls
about
the
the?
set of them. The rest are sheepish. They're bloody sheepish. They don't want to tell him to get out. I have publicly stated and begged their finale, take the man out, just like how he take out Janet Jagan. Because Janet too wanted to go and tell him what and what. And she put him up as the new president. She put him up as the new leader of the party and wanted to make a couple of things and so on. And he said, no, you're a private citizen, get out. I think that is exactly what Irfan Ali, who is a far more independent thinker and got a little less harshness and arrogance about him, should tell him, hey man, you're a private citizen now. Please, you should go along your way. But he's not going to do that. This man wanted a third term, and he used that Richardson guy to go and get Ian Chang and so on to rule in his favor.
He's the four-term president. The reality
Yes,
is
but
he is. But
but
he's
that
not
is the trouble.
officially, not de jure, but he's de
Right.
facto.
But the jure and all of them are de facto not presidents, but
So,
they allow him to do what he wants.
so given that's, and I'm coming to this because I want to talk about what we're going to do in the last 10 minutes, but given the fact that, 51% of the population voted for the PPP, which means the other 49% clearly voted against them, given that we have all these ethnic challenges, given that we've seen this vast gap between one group that is getting all the benefits and another that is virtually shut out, the short and medium term development prospects for the country at a social and political level can't be good. What would you say if, in the event that there was a re-election of the People's Progressive Party, what would you say the country is likely to look like in 5 years?
Look, I have a little gloom and doom about it. If the president, Irfan Ali, can just pick up some courage and start talking to the opposition, it will go far away. For me, seeing that with him being the next president, if he wins the next elections, which I am going to argue against, would be a positive. If you allow a fella who has done so much harm to come in back and be serving like a fourth term, as you are saying.
Oh, if he comes back in the fifth term, because
yeah, but if he come back and be fourth, that's what I'm saying.
There since 1930, since he was 35 years old. Sorry.
Exactly. It is not going to be good for the country. You have to have.
What do you think this country will look like with 5 more years of these policies, where you see this disparity, you see people getting $660 million above the engineer's estimate? You yourself.
Nigel, just don't tell you it will be a conflagration.
No, that's the election. But if after the election they are in office, what is going to happen? What do you understand? What's your appreciation of what it's going to look like?
Well, I feel that people are not going to take it. People are going to be because democracy is not only winning in elections. So we can have the PPP winning in elections, but there being no democracy. And this is
not a problem. That's not a problem for the People's Progressive Party. It's
yeah, well, that is where they're going to find the problem, because people are going to say, well, one set getting all the monies, one set getting all the contracts, one set not getting anything, and so on. And there you will have tremendous difficulties in the society. You want to heal this acrimonious state, and that will come from statesmanship. And statesmanship got to tell the people there, his arrogant set, contractors, whatever, ministerial officials and AG and everybody, hey, hold on a minute. I know Chedi had done that to a certain extent.
Chedi's long gone, and Chedi's influence.
But his influence there is what has made people like us who understand that to avoid that kind of conflagration, you got to talk to people. You got to give the trade unions their rights. You got to give the workers their rights. You got to give the businessmen their rights and rewards too, and so on. And then have the thing in a holistic shape. But if you just allow a dictatorial fella, autocrat like Jack Dale, who say you can go and plant a farm and write a book, and he's still doing that, dictating to all of them, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere.
But some would argue, and this is just devil's advocate before I go on to what I want to talk about, what we're going to do in 2025. Some will argue, but that's exactly what happened for the last 5 years, and there's been no conflagration. Some people argue that Guyanese are collectively culturally weak. No protests, no strikes. We had a bit of a teacher strike, and the approach of the PPP, which has been to completely ignore anybody else but themselves, seems to have had some success. They attempt to buy people off, and their token gestures all over the place. Why do you think that that is not likely to continue? You seem to be suggesting that people may or may not
Hey,
take.
look, we used to say a thing, the longest rope got an end. And what it meant also, in addition to government having an end, is also the acceptance of the evil will one day come to an end too. If they don't change their methods, people are going to say, all right, the next elections, you don't win it and so on. All right, we give them a chance. They win back. Are they changing? They're not changing? Well, then they will be. And it has happened in democracies. It has happened in advanced democracies too, where
Yeah,
when you
right here.
suffer,
Or in Arthur lost, and he was very, very popular. He got arrogant. Yes, but that's
yeah.
a different society. We only have
Oh,
a
well,
couple of yeah.
we're the same human beings, just like all of them. You know, that's we
Well,
we we. I
go
feel
ahead.
that we are going to get some very serious people, and it could the literature that I am reading about it is also saying that you can have people who will just want to say that the political parties are no bloody good. The AFC is no good. They put up Norton there, and the PNC is no good. And they take away from the formal political parties all of this, and you get chaos and anarchy. That is one of the things about, if you like, parliamentarism, and you're not getting the work done there, leaders will crop up, populist leaders who are so aggrieved, and they screw up the whole party system and all kind of thing. And that is also a danger to us. We must watch that, because I have noticed too in social media that some people saying that none of them ain't good. We have to have brand new this and brand new that and whatever.
But
And
that's the right. I mean, it's the right of every citizen if he wants to form a party, or she wants to
there.
form a party.
No, no, no. I agree. They could form
Yeah,
parties.
and they're free to persuade whoever they want to persuade. But one of the things I wanted, as we're wrapping up, the Alliance for
Yeah, go
Change.
ahead.
One of the things that we want to push next year, because we need a revolutionary change in the approach of policies, etc. We have to financially empower people to start running their, to start their own businesses. And one of the areas of focus for me is women, because women they're the backbone of the family. A lot of them are the sole economic source for the family. And quite often they're trapped in this poverty cycle that doesn't allow them to be able to expand and grow. And so in this
Mm-hmm.
time of plenty where we're making, $65 million an hour, we need, apart from transferring wealth to the citizens, we need to empower those citizens who can now develop their own businesses. And it's not just women in poverty, it's women in small businesses, women in medium businesses, men, of course. But I think the data suggests that they are the ones that have been more successful in creating businesses, because the oil industry is not going to create a lot of employment. We all know that. What we have to do is develop those other sectors of the economy to become export successful in exporting, and we have to build those. And there has not been a lot of money or time or effort dedicated to that. We've heard the president talk about the breadbasket of the Caribbean, but the reality is the real hard drill down work that has to be done. It's not a mega farm. A mega farm probably will employ 20 million people,
Yeah.
sorry, 20 people. What you need are those smaller industries that will grow and become, or have the capacity to grow and become, export led industries, aided by the government,
That's right.
potentially with grants, loans, and to give them the technical advice. So one of the people that struck me is those women that come from Ants Grove, and they bring their fresh fruits down. They walk around all of our offices and sell, of course, and also the vendors that sell. At the end of the day, because it's fresh fruit, that shelf life is very small. They don't have any place to store that, and quite often after 2 days they have to dump it. If we had refrigeration facilities in which they could just pay minimum amounts of money, leave their produce there overnight so
Excellent.
that they could blend. If we had one of my big concerns is this country runs on the ideas of one man. You can't run a sophisticated society on the ideas of one man. You need state structures,
Yeah,
state planning commissions. In Brazil, it's in the constitution because you have to gather that data and then you have to make sure that you plan. And this country is full of talent in the diaspora, people who have qualified, gone overseas
that's
with
right.
we have talent here. And the only way we can become a responsible, successful, I hate to use the term first world, but let me say highest standard living type country is if we have state institutions. We don't even have a petroleum commission
That's right.
to be able to look at the way in which we manage our single asset that is going to be providing for the next 10 years or at least the next 15 years. And so the structure of the state has to change significantly. I'm sorry we started this late, but I don't think you can possibly run a country unless it's a banana republic where one man wakes up and says, oh, this is how it has to be. I don't think the opposition should have a role in this. I don't think, somebody else is good enough. Somebody else is obstructionist. We can't be a serious country. We gotta be a banana republic because all we have is a king. We don't actually have a democracy. We have a king. We have a monarch. And if the monarch
A
says so,
monarchy. Yeah.
we have a
Well,
monarchy.
that is why I have been very critical of Jagdev for the past 20 years. I saw this in him a long time. And instead of listening to me and Ralph Ram Karan and Moses Nagamutu and some other people who had been there, man, get rid of all of me, expel me first. But that's the problem. And the problem is that he's still around. And a lot of people, as I tell the Bobishans, they surhawe him. They feel that his economic knowledge is encyclopedic. The man does not know a lot of the things. He know good propaganda.
I think somebody, it was Mr. Norton the other day, said name us one successful economic project that he has
Exactly.
had.
Yeah.
Keldon,
Yeah.
Barbees Bridge,
Fiber
has
optic, all
generated the
set of
money.
scandals.
Yeah, Amalia,
Exactly.
there hasn't been one singular stellar economic policy
Yeah.
that he can point to in the whatever fourth term that he's been there. Now, the more important question is when will the country of Guyana, when will the citizens of Guyana realize how much we are losing in terms of our approach by allowing this sort of single figure to dominate everything in the political space?
Yeah. What I call elective despotism. Look, it is when the people like what we're talking to in Berbice right now, Region 6 and 5 especially. But this program reaches Region 10 and a whole lot of other places too. Don't feel that it doesn't. It goes that far. It is when they come to realize that, look, we have been shortchanged by what the PPP then, and especially Jagdev, said when he was leader of the opposition. These changes and evolution takes some time, but still, I remember it was a long time that we could get rid of Forbes, Lyndon Forbes Sampson.
He didn't
Remember,
get rid of him.
28
He died.
years.
He died.
Yes, and then he died,
Yeah.
right? And then one term after that, Cherry Jagan came in. Then we went in with Granger, managed to do a couple of things, but the propaganda effect of Jagdev, especially on this oil agreement and all of that, which he says that he's going to renegotiate and he hasn't. He lied. So much money we got now, and inflation and everything else, cost of living, killing people. They are going to realize, and that is why I am pretty confident about the 2025 elections and so on. But the trouble is that even if it doesn't happen then, it will happen ultimately. And what we got to do, Nigel, is never give up.
No, I agree with you. And on that note, I first of all want to say thank you, Kemraj, for participating this weekend. And I want to say to the citizens that the Alliance for Change will be releasing all of its policies, not just at the manifesto, but we're going to be doing that consistently over the next 4 or 5 weeks, saying specifically what we our positions are on certain topics. And I can let you know, for example, one of them is going to be that we think that people who earn $2 million and less should pay no income tax. And there are other categories between $2 to $4 million. Income tax should be reduced to 15%. And we're going to be talking about more of those issues in the new year because it's an election year and we're still involved very heavily in the listening and grounding. And the purpose of the listening, and it has been extraordinarily useful to us, is that sometimes as a political leader, you assume that certain matters should be at the head. And when we come and we listen to you, you have totally different priorities. And that has been one of the benefits of
Right.
the listening, grounding, and listening tour. And we're going to continue that. We also have to conduct that internal review that I said we will, and what we did and what we should have done during the 5 years that we were in office, because it's important to inform us going forward. But with that, I would like to take the opportunity to wish all of the Guyanese, PPP, PNC, AFC, everybody, particularly the indigenous peoples of the country, a fantastic start to 2025. It is going to be not only the year of hope, it's going to be the year of the delivery of hope and success. And we are going to transform this country, not to what we alone think it should be, but what we collectively believe it should be, and deliver a first class, world class country in which all of us participate, all of us benefit, and all of us are committed to working hard for the continued improvement. Innovation, data, all of that is going to be central. I thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you, Kemraj, to everybody who has offered support and even those who've attacked us during 2024. We say peace. It's always peace, and better must come. Good night.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks.